Hello.
Today, well, actually, there's only 4 of y'all in here, so I'll wait until there's more people before I start talking about what's going on. How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah. What have y'all been up to aside from school?
Grey's Anatomy.
No, tight. What season are you on?
9.
Nice.
Yep.
I don't know super much about it, but my wife really likes Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, and you?
Good. Yeah. Good to have my cat home.
Cat's doing better. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very sad boy, so he's on painkillers, so he's like real dumb, and he has to wear like the cone, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But he's home and he's in his like little box recovering, so it's just good to have him back. I just hope he doesn't swallow more junk that he shouldn't swallow.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. Yesterday after class, I realized that I had gotten sidetracked by a question. Somebody had done that thing that happens to me every now and then where they ask a question and it like frazzles me and I go off on a tangent and never fully recover. Yesterday, basically everybody noticed that their stock prices dropped, right?
Yeah.
Was there anybody who recorded gains yesterday? Did anybody have a positive percent change, or was everybody negative? Did anybody have positive stock changes? I'm going to accept silence as a no. Okay, so yesterday, almost everybody's portfolios, right? They're fake portfolios for the sake of this investing project. They all lost money. And I was talking about why, and then a question was asked and I went off and I never came back. I want to talk about why everybody's stock prices dropped yesterday, because there was a universal reason why all of them dropped together. So today for the warm-up, I have 2 parts for y'all. Number 1, update the update those holdings movements in your portfolio. This just means update your stock prices. When you talk about how much money you have in a company, another way to say that is holdings. When you talk about price changes, another way to say that your stock value went up or your stock value went down is that the price had movement, either positive movement or negative movement, just to use, like business school frat boy lingo. And a portfolio is just a way to talk about your overall collection of stocks. Sometimes people have different collections of stocks because they trade them differently. People have things which they consider to be safe, and so that's would be a long-term portfolio. But people messing around with investing in vaccine companies during a pandemic, that is highly risky short-term stuff, and so they would sort that into some sort of risky portfolio. So yeah, update those stock prices. And number 2, go ahead and Google oil futures, because oil futures are actually why everybody's stocks dropped yesterday. Things are beginning to recover as those oil futures recover, but an unprecedented thing happened the other day with oil prices, and
Yeah, I
that's
saw that.
actually why everybody's stocks dropped. Yeah, Google it up, and for the warm-up for item 2 here, write me a little bit of stuff about it. A little bit of what you glean from oil futures. Don't spend more than like 3 or 4 minutes reading. And hey, what a serendipitous thing to A, be on this like weird business math section when the market is super interesting, and 2, to be talking about oil futures on Earth Day. Hey, happy Earth Day, everybody. Oil's worthless. How about that? Are there any questions on what I'm asking y'all to do on the warm-up? No? We're good?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go to my own investment project, as I have been doing. Not that this is a competition, but just because I want to make sure that every day we get a chance to see how this is done. Because, man, when it comes to Excel, practice is perfect. My first few Excel sheets when I was in high school trying to do data for AP Physics, all junk, absolutely worthless. But nowadays, my Excel sheets, real quick, real clean, easy to read. The more you do this stuff, the better you'll get at it. And I 1000% guarantee that at some point next year in college, you will take a lab course where they expect you to use Excel. And honestly, you will get pretty good at it if you start using that personal budget sheet. If you ever have a question about Excel or spreadsheets, even after you graduate and move out into the world, into real life, if you ever have a question, hit me up on the personal email. So all I'm going to do today in order to update my stock prices, and of course, on any given day, feel free to buy or sell, just notate it accordingly in terms of your cash on hand and all of your other values, is I copied it from oh, heck, did I make a problem with my dates? Oh, I was dumb. Do y'all notice what I did? I forgot to include the 2 days for the weekend, so all my dates are wrong now. So Friday was the 17th, so the next day of trading should have actually been the 20th. Sorry, I'm going to rename these and fix them. So this is actually the 20th of April. This one is actually the 21st of April. And today's the 22nd, right? Today's the 22nd?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take down my total portfolio value yesterday, which was down 11%. And again, it was down 11% because of the price movements on oil futures. My total investment yesterday was $10,370.08. And so I'm going to go to my new sheet. The first thing that I'm going to do always is enter that as yesterday's value, 10370.08. And let's go ahead and see if my portfolio recovered at all from yesterday's market fluctuations.
Mr. Robinson?
Yep.
What if one of our stocks didn't change at all? Like it's the exact same. Should I just leave it the exact same?
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes that happens at the 2 times you check the stock, there will be no movement at all. Yeah.
Okay.
That happens a lot, especially with big stable products. Like the classic is Berkshire Hathaway. Google's back up a little bit. Sony up a little bit. And I don't own any Tesla, but I'm going to check the stock anyway, just to see if it was a mistake that I sold when I did. I'm still up from when I sold, but it still hasn't recovered all the way. So yesterday I lost 11%. Today I'm back up 1%. And so I have gained back a little bit of the money that I lost yesterday, but not all of it, not yet, because yesterday the market took a pretty big hit due to a change in the price on oil futures. So let's talk a little bit about future trading. And when I say a little bit, I mean basically nothing. Trading futures is one of the most complicated things to discuss in investment because of how strange it is and how it works. So let's just talk about the fundamentals of oil and the fundamentals of futures. And if you Google oil futures right now, I guarantee y'all are all getting basically the same article. What happened with oil future prices? Who wants to tell me about it?
I got you.
Yee?
Okay, so pretty much based off what I know, there's like way too much like oil, and they have nowhere to put it. And then because of that, because the oil is obviously like converted into gas, and that's why all the gas prices are really low. It's because no one really is like driving their cars to even want gas to begin with. So because of that, there's like a very huge abundance of oil, and there was a deal between 2 people, and the guy that was selling the oil had to pay the buyer to buy the oil.
Yeah, okay, that's actually a perfect setup. So let me go ahead and change my window over to the article that I have on it. Oh wait, I am sharing the correct window. Y'all can see my Excel sheet here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would have felt really dumb if I updated my project and that wasn't on the video. Yeah, so on the 21st, oil future prices literally went negative, which is to say that oil was selling at a negative price. And so somebody who had barrels of oil was, when it hit negative 40, that effectively means that if you are willing to take a barrel of oil from him, that dude would give you $40. Think about that. Now, does that mean that somebody out there went up to a warehouse with a truck and was like, hey, give me 40 bucks, I'll take that barrel of oil? Yeah, no, that didn't happen. All of this is speculative. It all takes place in the market, because when you are trading quote unquote futures, what you are actually investing in is not what that oil is selling for right now, but what that oil will sell for years from now when it eventually hits the market. The reason why this is a thing which is traded on its own futures is the fact that oil production takes years. It takes a long time to pump a drop of oil out of the ground and actually turn it into a product. And once it's available, it doesn't go bad. You can store it for years and years and years and years before it goes out there. So the price that oil trades at today is actually a guess about what it will be worth in the future. And because most of this market trading is done by bots, once changes start to happen, you get these weird feedback loops that occur. And if they go too far, they actually just like shut the market down on it. So it's not that it actually went into the negative, but the computers that do the math said it did. And that's all it takes to move all of the money around in the market. And here's why it crashed the heck out of the market. Basically, every company is invested in oil, and oil is invested in every company. All of their money is tied together in this immensely complicated web. So if the money on oil goes down, so does everybody's investment. That's why there's this thing called divestment, which is the opposite of investment, where let's say I were to divest in your company. That means that I'm going to take all of my shares of stock of it and I'm going to sell all of them off, either to hurt your company intentionally or to show publicly that I don't trust your company. And certain organizations which are attempting to be, let's say, have the appearance of being eco-friendly, a lot of them are proud to divest in oil. Like all of the UCs have already divested in oil. The UC system used to be heavily invested in fossil fuels, but they basically pulled all their money out of that so that they can act like they're fighting climate change by shifting money in bank accounts. And here's why this is like a big deal, why it can be very problematic. Do y'all know what the top 2 traded commodities are in the world?
Oil and
Number 1 is oil. And guess what number 2 is? Don't Google it. The answer will surprise you, hopefully.
coal.
No, not anymore. Begins with a C, though.
Cars.
Coffee.
Currency. Oh.
Coffee. No. Commodities, which is to say goods. And even if you add in cars on this list, coffee is far and away past cars. We consume 2.5 billion cups of coffee a day, and it's only grown in a very, very narrow band around the Earth's equator. It really only grows in here where there's already very little land because most of the equator is ocean. So coffee is traded like crazy and it's wicked expensive. So if that price changes, it affects the entire market. And it's not just because cars burn gasoline, which itself is made of oil, and also cars are lubricated by oil, but oil going into gasoline, going into cars is actually a pretty small part of the market in terms of oil. So here are some things which affected the prices on oil futures. Less driving is one of them, but this probably isn't even in the top 3. That's probably not that big of a deal. Y'all know what else oil is used to make?
Vaseline.
That's a byproduct. So when you distill gasoline, you produce so you pump oil out of the ground, right? And you, oh God, what's the word? You distill it into a liquid part and a solid part. So basically you're separating it by heating it up. And the thin part is gasoline that you burn in your car, and the thick part that's left over, that's Vaseline. So there are all sorts of oil byproducts. Vaseline is one of them, but I'm talking about a way more common byproduct. It's right here, and here, and here, and here, and this bottle. What am I holding? What do all these objects have in common?
Plastic?
Plastic. Yo, plastic's made of oil, kids. And what is here's some other cases which are made of oil, and I think this next one is actually probably the biggest one that had to do with the change in the futures. Jet fuel, nobody's flying, so nobody needs jet fuel, right? A change in demand on gasoline for driving, a change in demand on byproducts, which I don't think this one changes, right? People still get chapped lips even when we're stuck at home, but people need less plastic. There's less disposable consumer goods being gone through, and this is the big one. There's less people flying, so there's less need for jet fuel production. Anything which is related to oil will affect oil future prices. Is this okay? Are there any questions about the changes in oil futures messing up everybody's stocks, and now we all need to spend a few days recovering? And are there any questions that y'all have individually about your own projects, about updating your own stock prices?
Quick question.
Yep.
Let's say we took out all our money and invested it in one stock. Is that a poor choice?
Yes. Yeah. So when you take your money and you invest it in a bunch of different stocks, that's called diversification. That's what it means to diversify your portfolio. And that means that you take your money and you invest it in a bunch of different places, not just a bunch of different companies, like a bunch of different sectors. So even if you were to take all your money and you're like, oh, I'm going to place bets on these 10 vaccine companies, that is not a diverse portfolio, because if the entire biotech industry takes a hit, so will your portfolio. Diversification means investing in a bunch of different parts of the economy. You buy some tech, you buy some agriculture, you buy some shipping, you buy some commodity futures, you buy a little bit of everything, so that no matter what, if part of your portfolio dips, some other part will go up and make up for it, hopefully.
Because yesterday, when I sold all my stocks, I bought it, I put it into all one company, and like when it was at a really low, the company, and I'm expecting it to go up, so I don't know if I should keep it or not.
That's a really good question, and because this is a theoretical $10,000 that is only going to earn you a grade in a calculus class, do whatever you want and see what happens. But if this was an actual $10,000, and I mean, you know, it's really a question of how much money you have to play with. Like if you have $1 million to invest, who cares what $10,000 goes towards? Make a bet or whatever. But if $10,000 is all of your investment egg, it would be a huge, irresponsible gamble that I could never justify to put it all on one thing, no matter how safe you think that one thing is. Is that okay?
Yeah, because I made money, but like it's not like huge.
Yeah, and that's not what you should expect when it comes to betting. Like, there's a group of people online who brag about their huge gains. They're always like, I invested $15,000 and 3 years later I was a millionaire. That is the exception and not the rule. The thing that I look for in my investments is steady growth. And every now and then I might put a small amount in something that looks good, like a vaccine stock right now. But for the overwhelming majority of my investments, they're all in stuff that's safe, that grows slowly over time, so that I can take those little bit of gains off of my main safe portfolio, and I make dangerous bets with that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. You know, the further we get into this, the more uncomfortable I feel about talking about this stuff with students. But you know, who cares? This is all right. This is kind of fun. Was there a question out there? I saw a mic open up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are we gonna be graded on how much money we make?
No, because I think we're headed towards a recession. So I think by the end of this project, everybody will have lost money. You get full credit as long as you do a good job keeping track of your Excel sheet. I want to see those Excel skills get better. And at the end, I'm going to have you write a reflection on how you think you did.
Okay, thank you.
So I want you to look back when you're done at the whole project and be like, I lost money here, I gained money here, the thing I did here was a good decision, the thing I did here was a bad decision. And that stuff will be easy to figure out, because all you'll have to do when you write your paper is go back and look at how your stock prices change. Look where you gained, look where you lost, look at the choices you made. And then if you ever need to, you can always like Google up news articles day by day to see if you were making the right decision based on what was going on.
Thank you.
And when are we gonna stop counting?
It's probably going to be the final. So we're going to
Oh.
count all the way until the end of the quarter. And then for the final, I'm going to have you write up a long paper that uses your Excel sheet as evidence, basically, and tell me what you learned about business and investing and how you did.
Also, about the oil, my dad, like a day ago, I just tell him about the stocks. He doesn't have any, but my grandpa did. And he told me that this one oil company, it was at zero. So the night we checked, it went to $1.31. And then the next morning when I wanted to buy it, it was $4. And today it's $14. So he told me to buy it, and I did. I bought 528 shares.
That's lit. Yeah. And I mean, you know, buy low, sell high is the Wall Street bet mentality, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure there were a bunch of vultures who saw those oil futures go into the negative, and they were like, yo, as soon as the market opens tomorrow, I'm going to snap all of this up. And that exact behavior in the market is why those oil futures are beginning to get back up to their regular prices already, why things are recovering.
Yeah. Thank you.
And of course, all of this stuff, like A happens because of B and B happens because of C. That stuff doesn't work in a system this chaotic. So all of this stuff that I'm saying, this is really rough. This is not precisely how things work, but also I would assert that this is a place where nobody knows precisely how things work. Like nobody could actually sit down with you and be like, oh, oil prices went up this exact amount today because of this exact event. Nah, with millions of players in the market and millions of things going on in the world at any given moment, it makes it really hard to say why things happen. You place bets, you get lucky, or you don't. Today, we're going to talk about marginal tax rate, which we discussed at the end of class yesterday. Yesterday, we were talking about the way in which taxes are collected, how taxes are excised, and what they pay for. You have three different levels of tax collector in your life. You have your locality, you have the state, and then you also have the federal government, and they collect taxes from you at different amounts for different reasons, and those taxes pay for different things. I mentioned yesterday the fact that in your locality, property tax primarily pays for education. That's what pays for the public schools. And the fact that, what was the other thing? Oh, and sales tax in your locality, sales tax in your state, and locality is what keeps the lights on in their offices. So the money that is used to allow government office buildings to operate, most of that comes from sales tax and other grants. The one thing I neglected to mention is what your federal income tax pays for. Did y'all know that your federal income tax basically pays for two things and two things only? Do y'all know what two things the federal income tax pays for? Can I get a guess out there?
I don't know, being a citizen.
No. So everybody who is a citizen has to pay taxes. That's the deal, right? Like, I
Yeah.
would think of it this way. To be an American, that's a subscription, and childhood is just a free trial. But there are two things that your federal income tax pays for. Guess what they are, man? What's the most expensive thing the federal government does? What is the most expensive thing the federal government does, kids? What country do we live in?
Military.
Number one, the biggest thing that the federal income tax pays for is it pays for defense in general. The military, the Navy, the Air Force, all of the various branches of the Department of Defense. That is why the federal government is taking your money. The second thing that your federal income tax pays for primarily is federal safety nets, the biggest one being Social Security. There are a few other things that the federal income tax pays for past those two things, but the other things that it pays for are tiny compared to those first two. The federal government takes your money away so that they can spend it on defending the country and on providing health care and giving a stipend to people who are 65 and older. Social Security isn't money that you set aside while you work. When you are 65, the children of that era, right, the people who are working age then, their taxes will pay for your Social Security. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at some different scenarios, some different levels of income, and how those different levels of income are taxed differently. And keep in mind that when we do this, we're only going to be doing the marginal tax for the federal government. So this is not even the total amount of tax you would pay. You would also need to pay taxes to the state and to your locality, whatever those are. We're going to keep it simple and only talk about the federal government. And the point of this is just so that we can establish a couple vocab words. So today what we're going to look at is we are going to try and figure out the effective tax rate, which is to say, if you incorporate all of the margins to produce a final calculation, what is 100, just so that we can turn a decimal into a percent, multiplied by the total taxes you pay, divided by your total income. And no matter what, the effective tax rate that you pay always, 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 always must be in between the upper end margin and the lower end margin. So in Google Classroom, I posted 2 links, one that has the 2019 marginal tax rates for income, and one that has the marginal tax rates for capital gains. And if you look there at the 2019 one for income, what's the lowest tax rate in the lowest margin? We're looking at the first link in Google Classroom, federal income tax brackets, 2019 federal income tax brackets. What's that lowest percent? Kids?
10.
The lowest margin is 10%, and what's the highest margin?
37%.
So no matter what, if you correctly calculate an effective tax rate, it has to be above 10 and it has to be less than 37, no matter what. The more money you make, the larger effective tax you will pay, but it never goes over 37%, and most likely it never even gets close to 37%. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some different scenarios, and we're going to calculate the effective tax rates in those scenarios that you would have to pay to the federal government. And so to talk about this, I'm going to talk about 3 theoretical scenarios here, right? And here are our 3 scenarios. Scenario A, somebody who is single, right? Single. And somebody who's fresh out of college working their first job, let's say, right? So where you hopefully hope to find yourself graduating college. A lot of people graduate out of college straight into a long-term internship and end up making $0 for years, which is rough. But a lot of people who graduate out of college start off with a starting salary somewhere in the ballpark of $35,000 to $60,000, depending on what career exactly it is that they're going into. So let's just hit it right in the middle and say single income of $42,500 per year. That's going to be our scenario A. In our scenario B, we are going to calculate the effective tax rate for a married couple making a combined $160,000 per year. Which sounds like a lot of money. That's good. It's real healthy. Yeah. So that means on average 80,000 each, or maybe you have a difference in income and one person makes 120,000 and the other person makes 40,000. You never know. But when it comes to filing as a married couple, there are benefits to being married when it comes to the tax code. I think I made a joke about this in October when I got married, that we were just doing it for the taxes. I was only kind of kidding. Because, getting married really does help a bunch on your taxes. And then finally, option C here, we're going to talk about a person who is single and they are in college working part-time, but they were given an inheritance, right? So this person who is single and in college, they are making $18,000 per year of regular old income. But they also have an invested trust fund, which pays them yearly $20,000 a year. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some time and we're going to figure out how much taxes are these people actually paying to the federal government? How does this marginal tax rate junk work? Are there any questions on this stuff? Are there any questions on the setup or what it is that we're calculating for these people? No? Good? Okay. So I'm going to ask everybody to open up a fresh Excel sheet or Google spreadsheet. They work exactly the same. And have that open along with your that table that I had of the marginal tax rates. Or actually, you don't need to have that open. I'm going to have that open in my window. So if you want to put your spreadsheet side by side with my window, you can follow along at home. Let me get it set up, and then I'll share my screen. And what time are we out of here? We're out of here at 10:10.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay? Okay. And so over here on the left, let me make this a little bit bigger so that we can read it. I have my marginal tax rate example, just the title of it. And for this first one, I'm going to rename this to page A. And we're going to use this data here from the marginal tax rate bracket in order to calculate what the effective tax is on scenario a single person fresh out of college earning $42,500 per year. And so we're assuming all of that's taxable, it's all normal, that's what they have written at the top of their W-2. And what we want to figure out is how much money they're going to pay to the federal government so that that money can go towards paying for defense and paying for the elderly's Social Security. And so here's how I'm going to lay out my spreadsheet. I'm going to say box 1, well, that's just going to be the bracket. So bracket just means like, you know, the brackets are the 10% bracket, 12% bracket, 22% bracket, right? And then up next, I'm going to put the tax rate for that bracket, yeah? Where I'm going to multiply, or sorry, where I'm going to take the tax rate here, and I'm going to multiply it by, or I'm sorry, I'm going to take the tax rate here and I'm going to turn it into a decimal. And then I'm going to have the income in that bracket. And then I'm going to have the taxes on that bracket. And then the goal here is that in the end, I want to be able to calculate all of the taxes I paid, right? All of the income in total, and then I want to divide those two numbers. So this first bracket that we're in is going to be 0 to 9,700. The next one is going to be 9,701 to 39,475. And for this scenario A, right, if you're making $42,500 a year, you make enough money to get to the third tax bracket and the third tax bracket only. So I'm not going to list any of these out past that. So it's going to be $39,476 to $84,200. And by the way, these tax brackets change all the time. So just be aware of that. Is this okay, our basic setup so far?
Yes.
Okay, so for the next column here, we're going to have to take our tax rates and turn them into decimals. So how do we turn a percentage into a decimal?
Divide by 100, right?
Divide by 100, perfect. So if it's a 10% tax rate, 10 divided by 100 is going to be equal to 0.10. For that second bracket, the tax rate there is 12%, so it's going to be 0.12. And for that third tax bracket, the tax rate jumps up to 22%, 0.22. Hit enter. And so these are our tax rates in these individual brackets. And so here's what I'm going to do. We are now going to break our $42,500 worth of income up into these 3 chunks. And so in chunk 1, the money from 0 to 9,700, well, that's just $9,700. So your first $9,700 are going to be taxed at this rate, so I'll enter that. And then down below, before I move along, I'm going to build some formulas so that they get calculated live as I enter this stuff. So down here, I'm going to say that this is our total income, whatever is in this cell below. So how do I add up all of the numbers in a column? How do we do that command in Excel, y'all? So this is going to be equal to what? What equation?
The sum.
Very good. Equals sum, parentheses, and then I'm going to select all of the columns in this bracket because I know as we move along, we want to make sure that our total income adds up to the money in our scenario, $42,500. And then I also want to add up the total taxes paid. And again, this is federal only. You have to do this separately for the state. And not you, TurboTax or your tax prepper, but I just want you to know that this is the math that's going on behind the scenes, right? And this, again, total taxes paid is just going to be equal to the sum of all of the entries here in the taxes on these individual bracket. So right now, I haven't entered any of the formulas for taxes paid. We'll do that later, and the Excel sheet, since it does it automatically, it'll add it up as we go along. And then the goal here is to get the effective tax rate, which is to say, well, if you actually calculate the taxes paid in each one of these brackets, what percent are you paying really? What is the overall taxes paid? So this is going to be equal to, right? And I gave the formula in the whiteboard. I said that here it was 100, because this turns a decimal into a percent, multiplied by the total taxes divided by the total income. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put that exact same formula into Excel. So I'm going to say that my effective tax rate is equal to 100 times, parentheses, the total taxes paid divided by the total income. And then I'm going to hit enter. And I'm doing this now so that it updates this live as we go along, so that all I have to do is type in my income and the rest is automatic because we're fancy Excel children, right? I'm going to hit enter. And right now it's going to read out as 0 because we haven't paid any taxes yet. So now to figure out how many taxes we're going to pay on this bracket, how do I do that?
Multiply the income by the tax rate.
That is correct. If you want to know what is 10% of 9,700, we take that decimal, we take that percent and we turn it into a decimal. We already did that because we're very clever. We turned it into 0.01. And this is going to be equal to the money in that bracket multiplied then by the taxes on that bracket. So when I hit enter, here's what it's going to do. It's going to say that the total taxes paid so far are $970 to the federal government. And that shows that in bracket 1, the effective tax rate is exactly 10. Is this okay? Are there any questions here?
No.
Okay. So now to figure out how much money is in this next bracket. Well, this is going to be all the money between $39,475 and $9,700. So to figure out how much money sits in that bracket, all I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract them. So again, to go back to the little webcam thingam here, all I'm doing to figure out how much money sits inside of bracket 2 is I do the upper end of that bracket, $39,475 minus $9,700. That means $29,775 sits within bracket 2. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet and I'm going to enter that for item 2 here. Oh, and by the way, please do pay attention to this. Build out your own sheet because you're going to need it for a homework assignment. Nonetheless, so it's 29775. I'm going to hit enter. And in order to figure out how many taxes are being paid on this bracket, it's the tax rate for the bracket multiplied then by the income in that bracket. So now, bracket 1 is 10%, bracket 2 is 12%. This is calculating the money in each bracket and the taxes on the bracket. And so in reality, we are paying an effective tax rate of 11.5. Notice it's not the perfect average of 10 and 12. It's going to be dragged up towards 12 because there is more money in the 12% bracket. Is this okay?
Mr. Rob?
Yep.
Could you put this on like Google Classroom so we could see it after?
No, I'm not. I want you to do it and build your own sheet at home. And keep in mind, if you missed a step or if you fell behind, this video is going to go up on YouTube this afternoon.
Okay.
And so the final step, how much money did our theoretical recent college grad make in scenario A that I laid out?
$42,500.
And notice that right now we've added up $39,475 of his income. So I'm going to take his total amount of income, and this is just to calculate how much money goes in the third bracket. I'm going to take his income and I'm going to subtract the money that's already accounted for. So it's going to be $42,500 minus the amount that we've already calculated out, 39,475, which means only 3,000 of his dollars go into that final bracket. So let's go back to our spreadsheet. Doop, okay. And so in this bracket, this is where his last $3,025 is, which adds up to our total income correctly. Perfect. And fun fact about Excel, if you just copy paste down the equation, it'll keep doing it automatically because it knows that you are talking about this column times this column. So once you entered it in that first one, you could have just dragged it down and it works exactly the same. So this fresh college graduate who is earning $42,500 salary in their first job, they are in the 22% tax bracket. But do they pay 22% taxes? Is that what that means?
No,
No. How much taxes do they actually pay?
about 12% of their income.
They pay 12.25% on their income. Just because you are in the 22% tax bracket does not mean that is what you are paying. You only pay that money on the money in that bracket. And at this point, you only have $3,000 in that bracket. A lot of people complain about taxes going up, even when the increase of a tax to a specific bracket won't even affect them. Like if there were to be, because these tax codes change year to year, they change administration to administration. If you were to increase these numbers up here, like increase these values, it wouldn't affect the person whose income we had just calculated. I'm not advocating for an increase in tax. All I'm saying is people often think about taxes wrong. Taxes can go up or down without affecting you. If the tax is going up and down, don't affect your bracket. Does this make sense?
Mr. Rob,
Yeah.
can you go back to the page with the ABC thing?
Oh, yeah, the page with the setup?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're
The one
about to
below.
do number 2, a married couple. And we'll see that this is similar but different.
I'm a little confused on the income in bracket, how you're doing that.
So, okay, if we look at that link that I posted that has the nice clean tables for, sorry, let me share my screen. If we look at that link that I posted, right, this has the tax brackets. And what this is saying is that for your first $9,700, that gets taxed at 10%. So I put, because I'm saying we're doing this for somebody who makes $42,000 a year, but of that money, you have the first $10,000, that's only taxed at 10%. For the money in the next bracket, which to get this amount, I'm just subtracting the upper limit from 9,700. So between 9,700 and 39,475, there exists $29,775, and that money is taxed at 12%. So in this middle chunk of money, you're paying this many taxes. And after all that is said and done, after you earn more than $39,475, then the tax rate jumps up to 22%. So the last $3,000 that the person is paying gets taxed at that amount. So they pay $665.50 in taxes on that. And the only way that I know I'm done is that these three here, and let me show you the equation, that the income in each bracket adds up to the total amount of income that we wanted it to add up to.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And you're
Yeah.
just subtracting the second number from the one before.
That's what tells you how much money is in any given bracket. Is it's this number minus that number. That'll tell you how much money is in between.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. So yeah, this is what people talk about with tax rates and tax brackets. And this is why I know adults actually understand how their taxes work, because I swear to you, this math is too much for like 65% of adults. I ain't hating on them, because if you don't do math for a living, why would you ever think about it, right? But this is stuff worth understanding so that you know, like, oh, I go to TurboTax or I go to my tax dude and he tells me that I'm getting this much back or I owe this much. This is how this is done. Now, does this actually mean that you are going to pay $5,200 out of your pocket at the end of the year?
No.
Typically, no. If you are self-employed, it actually means you will. So if you're self-employed and you're collecting 1099s, you need to set aside money to pay for your taxes at the end of the year. But if you work a job like I do, like a boring office job where somebody hands you a W-2, there is a system of withholdings. So if they knew that at the end of the year I would owe this much, they would set aside more than this. They would probably set aside about $6,200. So at the end of the year, my taxes to the federal government will be paid automatically by our money lady, and then I will get refunded the extra money. I would get refunded that $1,000. I would get back my extra $1,000 of income. That's what a tax refund is. So let's quickly repeat this procedure, but instead we're going to do this for scenario B, a married couple making $160,000 a year of pure income. That is to say that none of this money is derived from investments. It all comes from the fact that both of them work jobs. And just going to go over here to another sheet. I'm going to do this fresh, rename this scenario B. The reason why I bother talking about this is that married people pay less taxes. And it's not because they pay smaller percentages, but it is due to the fact that if you are married and you file your taxes together, right? You pay for your taxes as a couple, you just add up the income and pay all of it together. Then the brackets are bigger. So instead of, when you're single, being able to pay the small tax rate, 10% on your first $10,000, for married couples, you get to pay the little tax rate all the way up to $19,400, which, if you notice, it's actually more than double. If you were to take $9,700 and double it, you only get back, oh no, I'm sorry, it is exactly double. It is exactly double. Nonetheless. Why do you think it is that the government is interested in giving married couples a tax break? Why would they make this tax situation preferable? What does that do for the government? And this is a little meta. Maybe y'all won't get this next part yet. Here are the two reasons in my head why it is the government will give tax breaks to married couples. Number one, Social Security right now is not paid by the people who collect it. I'm paying for the Social Security of people who are old now, which is to say, for that system to work, you need young people. Married couples produce additional young people to pay the taxes of tomorrow. Maybe that's a little bit dark, so I'll also think of it this way. For everybody who gets married, instead of the IRS having to process two tax returns, they only have to process one. So there is money to be saved in the fact that the government gets to do less paperwork if people file jointly or as families. And so to deal with scenario 2 now, right? We have our first bracket for this married couple, and the brackets are different because, you know, it's the married people tax rate. So this is 0 to 19,400. And then we also need the bracket from 19,401 to 78,950. And then we also need the bracket from 78,951 to 168,400. And notice that last number captures the money that we need it to in our bracket. We're only saying this couple makes $160,000 a year, and that last tax bracket captures it. So now I'm going to go over here to tax rate, and 10% is 0.1, 12% is 0.12, 22% is 0.22, and then finally we want to input the income in that bracket. So for this married couple, you know, from 0 to 19,400, that's the first 19,400 of their income. For this next bracket, I subtract this number, 78,950, from this number, 19,400, to figure out how much money sits inside of that bracket. So it's 78,950 minus 19,400. And so there is $59,550 in that second bracket. And in this third bracket, we need the money to add up to what? How much money does our couple make?
$160,000.
They make $160,000. So I'm going to add up the total income so we know how much money we're at right now. And right now we're at $78,950. So I'm going to take their upper end income, their $160,000 of income that they get from working their jobs. And from that, I'm going to subtract $78,950 because that is our current running total. And so in this final tax bracket, this married couple is paying 22% on $81,050 of their taxable income. So it now adds up to $160,000. We've done it correctly, the breakdown of these brackets. Now to calculate the taxes, it's simply equal to the tax rate times the income. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag that down. So this is the taxes being paid on each one of the sets of income in these brackets. I'm going to get my total taxes paid then. And this is going to be equal to the sum of all of the taxes on all of the brackets. And finally, we get our effective tax rate by doing the equation from our paper, 100 multiplied by the total taxes divided by the total income. And if we did this correct, what should this number fall in between? It should never go below what, and it should never go above what? In terms of effective tax rate, what's the lowest number you could get? We talked about this at the top. What's
1940.
Nope. What's the lowest tax rate, not bracket rate? What's that lowest percent?
10%.
And the highest percent?
37.
That's if you make.
22.
Yeah, I'm talking about this case. The highest tax bracket for this couple would be 22%. So our answer has to be between those numbers, and the effective tax rate is. So this married couple is paying an effective tax rate on 16.8% of their income grand total, even though they fall in the 22% tax bracket. And also, last fun fact, you could prove this on your own, but if you were to do this math for this couple's income individually, like, you know, there are some different ways you could earn $160,000 together. Maybe one person makes 100,000, the other person makes 60. Maybe we both make 80. Maybe one person makes 120, the other person makes 40. Anything's possible, right? But I guarantee you that this tax situation is preferable if you compare it to what it would cost to file both as single. There is a tax benefit to getting hitched. And so that's it for today. Today we talked about marginal tax rate, diversification, and commodity future trading. Lots of stuff to go over. We talked a little bit about commodities and how they are traded and kind of what happened to oil futures the other day and how that tanked all of our stocks, everybody in the class. And today we talked about calculating the effective tax rate for your income based on marginal tax rates and how that is done. You pay a different amount of taxes on the money in each bracket, but if you want to know what this actually means for you, what percent is the government taking out of your check in total at the end of the year, you add up all of the taxes divided by your total income, and this number is always less than your final bracket. If you are in the 24% bracket, if you're in the 32% bracket, I guarantee you, you are paying less taxes than that percent. Tomorrow when we come in, we're going to do our final tax bracket for a college student who has a rich relative. What does your tax situation look like if you work a part-time job for $18,000 of income, but you have a trust fund giving you $20,000 a year? We'll look at that tomorrow just so that we can show how money from income and money from investments are taxed differently.
Mr. Rob, I have a quick question.
Yes?
So you're saying to find the effective tax rate, all you have to do is just add up all of your income in the brackets and then subtract that by the sum of all of the taxes on bracket?
Subtract, no, divide. So the effective tax rate is the total taxes, the orange one, divided by the total income, the purple one, where the total taxes is just all of the taxes paid in each bracket added up, and the total income is the income in each bracket added up.
Okay, got you.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all have a very nice day. I'll see you tomorrow. And if you're in AP Physics, I'll see you in about 25 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Rob.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Bye.